On June 30th, 2016, Rec Room was released for early access on Steam, and since then we have had lots and lots and lots of cool updates that completely changed the game. So today, I'm going to be showing you every update from 2016. Before we start though, I do need to preface what updates I will be talking about in this video. The main thing I would like to point out is that I'm not going to cover small bug fixes because that's kind of lame, and I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to listen to me listing out every bug fix from 2016, so... Also, there have been updates from May 2016 since back then Rec Room was in some sort of closed beta, but since it wasn't on Steam back then, the only thing I could find related to the May update notes was that light beams got added to disc golf, so I think it's pretty safe to say the updates were pretty big. Also, if you wish to support me in Rec Room, then please go to my profile at Werewolf and press the big support button. I'm not joking when I say that this video took forever, so I would really appreciate it if you went and supported me. Thank you. With all of that being said though, let's start with the first update from June 30th, 2016, which was the day that Rec Room was released on Steam. And this update was very small. It had like 3 things which were all very minor adjustments, but I'm still going to talk about it since this was the first Steam update. So in this update, they added boundaries that are shown while teleporting. I have no idea what that means, but cool. You are now able to rotate while teleporting. Also, don't know what that means, but cool. And finally, they fixed some crashing issues, so a cool first update. However, around a week later, on July 6th, they dropped a huge update that added a ton of new features. For starters, they added the Rec Room Original 3D Charades, along with the theater environment, which if you don't already know was the first map for 3D Charades before they added the ink space. You can actually still play this version of 3D Charades if you're on VR. They also added the maker pen used for 3D Charades, which I think is pretty obvious, but I thought it was worth a mention. On top of this, they added an activity lobby in the old locker room, which if you don't know was pretty much the old rec center. They also improved some features like voice chat volume, the people menu in your watch, the mute and ignore shortcuts, as well as what happens when you're AFK in game. As well as adding a few other things like support for Steam friends and the code of conduct. They finally added rules in this update, apparently. And other than a few fixes and tweaks, that was basically it for this update. And the next major update that wasn't just bug fixes released on July 12th, pretty much a week later. In this update, they added the mute me gesture, which you can still do if you have it on by just covering your mouth with an empty hand. They also added the video camera, which was pretty much an earlier version of the streamer cam. A few settings, which included the option to turn on personal areas and teleport buffers, as well as making new players first spawn in the changing room, which was an old room that was pretty much an area to change your clothes at, because back then the dorm room didn't exist. They also added some new avatar items, as well as improvements to both 3D charades and performance, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Pretty small update compared to the last one. However, this next update, released on July 19th, looks small on paper, but it was actually pretty big. First off, they added Paintball, which for the record, they added 3D charades like 2 weeks ago at this point. You're going to see a lot more Rec Room originals and maps released throughout this video, and I already know half of the comments are going to be flaming Rec Room for this and calling them lazy. Trust me, it's not that deep. These old Rec Room originals are way more simple compared to the most recent ones, like Making the Midnight and My Little Monsters, that take a while to make. And to add on to that, I believe they are way more focused on other stuff right now, like Rec Room Studio and making the creator tools better. Obviously, back in 2016, they didn't have much when it came to Rec Room Originals, so they had to focus a lot more on making those instead of focusing on other stuff. But since we have a lot more Rec Room Originals than before, it's completely understandable why they want to try and focus on other things right now, as well as try and create a new Rec Room Original that's better than the other ones we've gotten. With that being said though, Paintball is currently the most cheered Rec Room Original with a ton of players playing every day, so I'd say this addition was pretty big. They also added leaderboards. Now, at this point in time, it was only in Paintball, but leaderboards are in pretty much every single room nowadays, so I'd say this was also a pretty big addition. And finally, they added Steam achievements. I'll be honest, I have no idea what happened to this. The next update was on July 21st, and it was a really minor update with mainly bug fixes. The only things that seemed important in this update was that they made it easier to get the flag, and they also added a timer for how long you can stay out of bounds for, so... The next update though, released on July 26th, is probably the biggest one we've talked about so far. For starters, the changing room was replaced with the dorm room, which is probably the most iconic area in Rec Room, but back then, the dorm room was extremely basic and looked nothing like how it does now. This also came with the 0G wardrobe, which made all of the items circle around you like what you're seeing now. On top of this, the team battle mode was added to Paintball as well as a leaderboard, so now we have leaderboards in both Paintball and Paintball. You also now spawned with a paintball gun, because back then you apparently didn't, so good for us, I guess. We also got push to talk added, as well as quality options in the settings menu, and a visible chaperone center. I don't know what that means, but it sounds important, so. And besides a few other small additions and some bug fixes, that was it for this update, so yeah, pretty big update. The next few updates weren't as big as this one. It mainly had like a few small additions or changes. For example, a few days later on July 28th, there was an update, but the only big addition was that they added a 3D pen in the dorm room, so a fire update. The next update on August 2nd, which is the first August update, was way bigger, but not by a lot. Basically, they revamped the menu to make it more simple, added more hairstyles, added a tooltip system, as well as a bulletin board with movable items in the dorm room, which ended up being deleted, unfortunately. They also added new lighting for a bunch of the rooms like 3D charades, as well as a bunch of bug fixes, so yeah, pretty decent update. The next update, though, released on August 10th, was way bigger than these last two updates. For starters, they added a new Rec Room original, Shield Soccer, which was a really old room that has since been replaced with, well, soccer. If you're wondering what it was literally just soccer, but you spawn with shields and you bounce the soccer ball with the shields instead of with your body. Ooh, so different. They also added the ability to vote kick people, which, let's be honest, I think we all have a love-hate relationship with. They also improved the handset, which, if you don't know, was an old device that appeared in your hand when you teleported. It was kind of weird. As well as added World Rotation V2. I have no idea what this means, but I guess it made it easier for you to rotate your character. They also fixed some bugs, updated the lighting in some of the rooms, as well as added the ability to spin the zero-G clothing rack with your hands. So really needed feature, I guess. And yeah, this update was pretty big, so it's no surprise that the next update, released on August 16th, was way smaller. And actually, this update announced an event that happened back then, the Virtual Reality World Championships. This was a competitive tournament-based event, with the games being 3v3 dodgeball, 3v3 shield soccer, and 3v3 paintball, and the winners received limited edition real-life Rec Room t-shirts, which is pretty cool. Besides that, though, the rest of the changes for this update were just more lighting changes and bug fixes, so that's pretty much it for this update. The update after that, released on August 24th, was way bigger because it included a new paintball map, Homestead, and that's pretty much it. Okay, well, not quite. They did polish a few Rec Room originals like Paintball and Shield Soccer, and also talked more about the VR World Championships a bit more, but other than that, and a few bug fixes and such, that was pretty much it. The next update was the last update from August, releasing on August 30th. And for some reason in both these patch notes as well as next update's patch notes, they messed up with formatting the text, so every time they tried to bold the text or make a bulleted list, it's just completely messed up. Anyway, this update added levels, which is one of the most neglected features in Rec Room in my opinion. They also removed paintball blindness, because back then, no matter what your settings were, if you got shot in the face with a paintball gun, you would not be able to see anything thanks to the paintball splats. Oh, and also they announced the end of the VR World Championships, and the winners were displayed in the locker room with this cool trophy, which looks sick. And besides some bug fixes that apparently fixed dodgeballs being set on fire, I wish I had footage of this, but I don't, unfortunately. That was all of the updates from August, so let's move on to the first update from September, which was released on September 7th. This update mainly added a few things to paintball, which included the paintball shotgun, which is one of the most popular weapons in the game, the paintball grenade, which is also very popular, as well as the paintball shield, which was added because, quote, the water jug shields were a little OP, which means that water jugs were the original shields before actual shields were added for some reason. This update also added a basketball that actually worked apparently, as well as the motion teleport option. I don't know what that means, but cool. And that was it for this update. The next update wouldn't come until September 20th, and this was a pretty decent one. For starters, disc golf was overhauled to include more holes, and they also added the ability to curve your disc. They also added darts as well as a dartboard to the locker room, and they made it so that the video camera recorded audio. And besides tweaking the paintball shotgun to have longer range, that was it for this update, so let's move on to the final update for September. This update was launched on September 29th, and it mainly added new avatar items as well as announcing the Rec Room Reddit, and that they were soon going to reset avatars and levels for everyone. Yeah, that went in a different direction than what you were expecting, huh? They did this because they wanted to roll out a proper Rec Room profile with usernames and nicknames, and you were able to keep whatever you were wearing when the reset occurred. They also announced an item that would only be available to people that played before the reset, but I have no idea what happened with that, so let's move on to the first October update released on October 5th. First, they added a new tutorial to help new players learn how Rec Room works, and no, this wasn't orientation, that would be added a few years later. They also added a new projector scoreboard, as well as made some improvements to disc golf. These improvements included the mercy rule, which means that if you got the +7 on a hole, you'll be advanced to the next hole automatically. They also made some improvements to notifications, which I guess made them more visible, and other than bug fixing and updated textures, that's pretty much it. So let's move on to the next update, released on August 17th, and this one is very small. They updated 3D charades with a new format, improved the scoreboards and notifications again, updated the audio for some of the items, and made some bug fixes. And that's pretty much it for that update. So let's move on to the last update for October. Yeah, not a lot happened in October. This update was released on August 26th, and it firstly added a practice mode for a bunch of the Rec Room originals, and no, it's not as cool as you may think. I'm pretty sure it's just the statues and guns being available before the game. They also improved disc golf, again, added a water shader, as well as improved the lighting in Homestead. They also made it so that the trees in disc golf shed leaves when you throw a disc into them. I have no idea whether this is still in the game, but here's footage of it if it is. And that was it for that update. So let's move on to the first update for November, released on November 3rd, and it was only bug fixes. So let's move on to the second update for November, which was an actual pretty big update. For starters, they announced that Rec Room would go cross-platform with Oculus Touch, so yay. They also announced Rec Room memberships, and no, this isn't Rec Room Plus. This was a free and separate membership, which was pretty much like creating a Roblox account. You were able to become a member using these selfie kiosks, and you were also able to secure an actual username. Along with this, they also finally added the watch, and honestly, the old menu might look better than the watch menu we have right now. They also added ghost mode, which was an old feature where if you clicked a button, it would turn everyone and everything into ghosts. They also announced two things coming soon that weren't added this update: private games and cross-platform friends. And yeah, that was pretty much it for this update. It was pretty big. The next update, released on November 16th, was mainly just a reminder that they're going to reset the levels and items soon, but it did add a new avatar system, so there's that. The next update, though, released on November 22nd, was pretty big. For starters, they finally reset the levels and items, so there's the end of that era. They also added the invite system, which allows you to invite friends that are online, as well as the cross-platform friend thing that they announced like 2 updates ago. On top of all of that, they added new rotation options, new music for 3D charades, the ability to detach the watch menu, over 100 new avatar items, as well as updated to tutorial voiceover and some help clipboards. And besides temporarily removing leaderboards for some reason, that was it for this update. The next update, released on November 23rd, was the last update for November, and it didn't have a whole lot, but it still had some stuff. For starters, they added a new tag on newly unlocked items, which I have no idea what happened to, so yay. They also added invited notification sounds, a badge in the menu when you get invited, offline friends being marked as offline, and grip rotates. And besides some bug fixes, that was it for this update and for November. So let's move on to the first December update, released on December 8th, which was pretty big and also included this cool format for the update logs, which looks pretty nice. Anyway, for starters, they added a new map for Paintball, the Quarry, which comes with a new paintball gun, the sniper rifle. They also changed how paintball maps in the locker room are accessed. Originally, they had a door for each map, but when this update dropped, it changed to just one door for paintball. They also added the boxes that you can open for items, added new items, as well as made it so you can adjust the podium height for 3D charades. On top of all of that, they made some changes to ghost mode, 3D charades, the dorm room, as well as a bunch of other stuff that I can't be bothered to list because it's kind of boring and not that important, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's move on to December 16th, which actually had 2 separate updates on the same day for some reason. The first one was mainly just bug fixes, but they did make the blind thing to counter motion sickness less intense and made the default to 360 tracking, so that's nice. The next update, though, was a collab, and yes, it's raw data. I think everyone knows what raw data is by now, but if you don't, this collab came with 2 sets, and if you were a member when the event was going on, you got both of the sets when you got on. They also announced a giveaway for a 1080 graphics card, a swag pack, and a raw data game key. And if you wanted to win this giveaway, all you needed to do was dress in one of the collab sets, take a picture, and send it in. This giveaway is over though, so if you have the raw data outfits, I wouldn't recommend trying this. The next update on December 22nd is actually the last update for December, which means it's the last update for this video, and it's pretty big, like very big. For starters, they finally added invite-only games after announcing them in like November. They added the lounge, which to be fair is a pretty nice space if you're in a private instance with your friends and not in a public instance with random people. They also added a free-form version of 3D charades in the lounge, but I think this is just the maker pen and cards being on the stage, so yay. They added the whiteboards, which according to them are for now only available in the lounge and the dorm. As it turns out, for now would turn to forever. It's not even in the maker pen unless you got an invention of it. They also made it so that the person carrying the flag in Paintball has a longer teleport cooldown. I can't be bothered to test whether this is still in the game. Go let me know down in the comments. You are also now able to thumbs up or down with your hands, change your display name and password, and find friends easier. And on top of all of that, they made some improvements to ghost mode and made some bug fixes. And yeah, that's it for the last update of this video. And if you learned anything new, then please make sure to like and subscribe.